What's the thing that scares you the most?
Confined spaces and blood particles in the air, the dark, that coral thing that's been staring at me since I came in here.
Kris, I'm scared to death.
Welcome to the Sum of All Fear podcast, the show that examines real-life phobias and the horror movies that prey on them.
So pour yourself something strong, Feardos, and let's find out what makes you afraid.
Pep it up. Come on.
You pep it up.
Pep it up. I need some pep.
Shut your pep.
Oh, this week didn't totally suck balls.
Woo!
Kris.
I know.
It didn't totally suck balls. The summer that wasn't actually started to slow down a little bit. Things didn't go, we went 4 days without a crisis.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. And we're actually doing it. We're recording an episode within a week of the old episode.
I'm really proud of us.
Yay!
Yay!
High five. Woohoo! We tag teamed this bitch.
We did.
We got some shit done.
Well, and we also needed to record before the movie that we were talking about kind of
is not a
thing anymore,
not a thing anymore.
And we had just seen it, and so it's kind of fresh for everyone.
That's always good too. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we went and we had a nice dinner last night and had some wine. We posted up a picture, at our favorite little Italian restaurant, and actually got to, kind of kick back and not feel totally stressed out for once. So
it's great.
That was good. I'm really happy about that. I don't know about you.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? All week I was like, I am just so happy that things are not up or down and just are.
Yeah.
I am fine with that.
It's nice. Well, welcome back, old Feardos and new Feardos. I'm Drew. I'm a full-time writer and part-time horror nerd, and this is Kris. She's my wife and professional mental health therapist. Her idea of a perfect life would be living alone on the Oregon coast with 50 rescue dogs. And I get major FOMO even when someone goes to the DMV without me.
With my best friend, Veronica.
That's true. Yeah.
We've already made this pact because both of our husbands are going to die mysteriously before us.
Mysteriously?
Just kidding.
You heard it here first. This is documented now. So just if I wind up
he's already
dying under mysterious circumstances, I want you guys to.
He's already 150 years old. He is a vampire. So.
Oh, Robert?
Yeah.
Well, that's true. Very true. The podcast has been blowing up this week.
I know.
Like
Thank you
crazy,
guys.
crazy blowing up this week.
Thanks for listening.
We've practically doubled what our normal kind of downloads and stuff normally are. So huge thank you guys to everyone that's been listening and sharing the podcast with your friends. After we dropped that Fear of Mirrors episode on Monday, we just went nuts. It went insane.
People
all of a sudden
it
was going crazy. So
for the famous.
Yeah. So you guys all really rock super hard, and we want you to know how much we appreciate you guys, and thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing it and passing it around and all those things, because honestly, this stuff, it really makes a difference. And we saw it this week. All of a sudden something took off. I don't know, it was crazy. So we really appreciate it, guys. Appreciate the listeners, and we welcome all the new listeners. I'm guessing there's a few new ones out there, so welcome to the Feardo family, guys. We're glad you found us. We want to get to know you. So come join our conversation on social media. We are on Facebook at Sum of All Fear Podcast. We are on Twitter and Instagram at Sum of All Fear Pod. And if you like the show, you can support us on Patreon, like our awesome Feardo friends, James from the Eek Channel podcast and Toby from McKinney, Texas. They support us on the Patreon, our very early young Patreon account. And of course, guys, please go to your podcast apps and give us a rating and a review, and we will definitely give you a shout out on the podcast and on social media. And we'll send you some stickers if you send us your address.
Yes, we want to send stickers out. Send us your address. We got lots of stickers, so
send us your address. We'll send them to you for sure. So shout outs are really important. Shout outs, reviews and ratings. Yeah, we were talking about that. Reviews and ratings are awesome. Hick Mama 4 wrote on our Apple iTunes, I got sucked in, 5 stars. I started with the agoraphobia episode. Oh my gosh. Great information about the actual phobia, and the clips for honorable mention movies were great. Looking forward to the next episode. Great job, Drew and Kris. So thanks, Hick Mama 4. And please, if you're an old listener or a new listener and you like what you hear, or you're just mildly entertained, be like Hick Mama 4 and let us know.
Be like Hick Mom.
We can use all the help we can get.
Damn straight, right?
in every area of our lives, people.
We need a sum of all fear. We could use all the help.
We need a support group. We need a sum of all fear support group. So we would like to turn our social media into a sum of all fear support group.
That would be wonderful.
That would be awesome. I could use it. I know I could use it. Actually, I was thinking about that this week. We should, if anybody's interested,
private group
in setting up a private group of some kind, like a private Facebook group. That'd be awesome. I know that's something that Horror Virgin does that I love. I'm on there all the time chatting with people.
Can we set it up?
We could set it up, but I would love.
Is that awkward?
No, I would rather have somebody else kind of take ownership of it, and I would love to moderate it too. But if somebody wants to do something like that, just let us know. We would love to. I would jump in and moderate it and do a bunch of stuff to it. But if somebody else wants to kind of host it,
and I would sit in the corner and silently watch all the posts and giggle and laugh.
That's very voyeuristic of you.
I am a
hot.
voyeur.
I'm just gonna go sit in the corner.
Shut up.
I like it. But yeah, like I think it'd be really fun, and it'd be great to like get ideas about future episodes. It'd be great to talk about what horror movies we like. It'd be great to talk about our phobias and what we're dealing with, and maybe, like I said, maybe it's kind of like a little support group.
Well, and one day we want to explore the idea of bringing people on the podcast or kind of answering questions, like very Dr. Drew
for sure.
So yeah.
So
do it, folks.
I like cool. It. What else is going on? Anything?
No, that's so fucking great.
What's so that nothing is going on?
Nothing. Not a fucking thing.
Yeah, we actually have a Saturday where we're like, you know what? We don't really have anything we have to do today.
And I love to not to have to do anything. Like I love not feeling guilty about having to not do anything. If that makes any sense.
Fucking too. I'm with you. So
you are becoming more and more like me as the years go on.
Yeah,
you used to be like this. I mean,
FOMO
I know
is not nearly as bad.
I know your intro had a lot to do with FOMO, but I really do think that the older you get, the more
it's getting better.
Yeah,
it's getting better.
The more your FOMO is resolving.
It is. Yeah, I think about, oh man, it'd be great to go do that thing, and then I'm like, but it would also be great to be not doing that thing.
But how great would it be to not?
It would be good to not do that thing.
So fucking great.
I'm okay with not doing that thing.
There's so many times I'm like, well, I mean, I could go do that, but then I couldn't. I could stay home in my pajamas with my dog.
Exactly.
And binge watch Mindhunter.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I was up late last night watching.
I know. I fell asleep.
I know. I got through like 5 or 6 really episodes and could not like stop watching it. And I didn't get to bed till like 2 a.m. because I like could not stop.
I have so much
hitting play. You get to the end of the Netflix
and you're like, go.
And it's like, oh yeah, one more. I'll just watch the beginning of this one, until I finally started falling asleep. But Mindhunter is rad.
After this, we need to binge watch it some more.
Heck yeah.
We need to go back and forth between Mindhunter and Handmaid's Tale. Just really fuck up our psyches.
Ugh. All right. Are you ready for the world's greatest phobia-based trivia game?
You know it.
The still the same, because I just could not figure out a way to make this any different. But we're going to bring some more pep to it, right? It's all about pep.
Pep.
We're gonna pump this up a little bit more. So, are you ready?
I'm going to pump you up.
I'm gonna pep me up. Mm-hmm. It's time for the world's greatest phobia-based trivia game.
What the fear? You say it now.
What the fear?
There you go. Okay, you have to say it like that.
You didn't do your little what the fear scat.
Delayed scat. No, you.
Here, I'll do it again. It's time for the world's greatest phobia-based trivia game. Oh, there you go. That's better.
You always got to add the scat in there.
What the fear?
No matter how much Drew wants to change it, it still keeps coming back.
It's the same. Keeps being the same. I kept thinking of ideas like we could do like you were saying earlier. Like you could we could talk about throw a movie out there, and then you have to guess what like phobia it's on, or maybe we do clips, or I don't know. I can't figure it out.
I don't know. I keep thinking you want to change it.
I think you just nailed it when you came up with what the fear. You just nailed it. So maybe it just needs to remain.
Maybe it's because you
want a staple.
You want to change it because you think that I'm somehow cheating.
Well, because you're just too awesome. You're just too damn awesome. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You want to play some What the Fear?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Are we going to run out of words eventually? I mean, are
Probably.
we going to run out of phobias? There's a lot of phobias.
Are we
out
going to
there.
run out of things?
Are we going to run out of episodes? I mean, it's going to be a long time for to run out of episodes. And we can always repeat episodes too.
That's true.
Like-
and go deeper dive movies.
Yeah. I mean, how many Fear of Clown movies are there?
We can
There's
always
quite a few.
repeat fears too. Because I
For
mean,
sure.
there's multiple names for like
That's true.
every
That's
fear.
true. We just did catoptrophobia, but we could do spectrophobia
Spectrophobia.
or any of those other phobias. True story. This is endless. We could do this forever, people.
My endless phobia.
All right. Your first word is tautophobia. Tautophobia. Teuto phobia.
Would it be
Tautophobia.
Tutophobia?
Could be
instead of
tutophobia.
tau?
Could be tutophobia.
Tutopho-
Tautophobia.
Like
Tutophobia.
like tutophobia.
Yeah.
Tutophobia.
Scared of toots.
Aw, flatulentophobia.
If I invited you to my backyard party, which I should because we're married. If I invited you to my backyard party
Dude,
and
if you didn't, I would totally
you'd be
fucking
pissed off. Yeah.
I'd remove you from the group.
You wouldn't be very happy. If I invited you to my backyard party and I was grilling it up, you might eat a hot dog, but you definitely would stay away from the bratwurst and the schnitzel.
Fear of German meats?
That's partially correct.
Wow. So now I have to know the difference between like a hot dog versus like a
Yeah, yes, I want you to break down all the ingredients of a schnitzel, please. Can you please break down? It's not just lips and assholes, people.
That's the title of my next book. It's not just lips and assholes. Hey, title of your sex tape.
Title of your sex tape.
Not just lips and assholes.
It's not
people.
just lips and assholes, people. Don't worry, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there in this What the Fear. Don't worry.
Okay. So could you repeat it again?
If I invited you to my backyard party and I was grilling it up, you might eat a hot dog, but you would definitely stay away from the bratwurst and the schnitzel.
Fear of sausage casings larger than 8 inches.
Colder, getting colder.
I don't know. Let's see. Okay. Fear of eclectic food.
Ooh, I like that, but no.
No. Okay.
You got much closer in the first answer. It's
Fear-
fear of Germany or German culture.
Dang it. I was very skewed away from that
Yeah.
because that was the first thing I thought
I was
of.
trying not to just like bring up something about Lederhosen or Oktoberfest or things that would just like instantly give it to you like I normally do.
That was good. Okay.
So
You didn't
there you go.
instantly give it to me.
There you go. All right, you ready for the second one?
Yes.
Tapinophobia. Tapino phobia. Tapinophobia. Tapinophobia. That's tapinophilia.
It's what you had last week when I kept hitting the computers and shit.
I did.
And you were
were
like,
banging
"Ugh,
everything.
blah." You hate it when I bang.
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 Winky, blinky.
Winky blinky. Okay, no, but what's my hint?
Bang. I haven't given it to you yet. Tapinophobia. A person with this phobia always sneezes into their arms like they're supposed to. Thank you, tapinophobics. A person with this phobia always sneezes into their arms like they are supposed to. Thank you, tapinophobics. I mean,
Fear.
that's pretty nice.
Fear of inappropriate hygiene techniques.
Ooh, not super far off, but no, that's not. I mean, that was in the ballpark. I mean, that was in the ballpark.
Fear of hand washing.
No, kind of the opposite, actually.
Oh,
Fear
okay.
of being contagious.
Fear of being
Contagious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Good job.
Pulling the old freaking wool over your eyes now.
Yeah.
I think you're going to get the last one.
Fucking
though.
magician over here. No.
Last one's getting a little bit more winky blinky.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always like the winky blinky ones.
Sorry, ladies. If you end up with one of these, I didn't give you the phobia yet.
No, but
Actually-
you gave me the eyebrow as you were saying that.
I wonder if I shouldn't even like give you the phobia. If I should just give you the clue first. Maybe I should try that.
Okay.
Sorry, ladies. If you end up with one of these phobics, you won't be getting your salad tossed anytime soon.
Fear of the booty hole?
That is correct.
Fear of the brown note?
I don't think that's the official medical term.
Fear of the brown note?
Fear of rectums. Fear of assholes.
Oh.
Proctophobia.
Proctophobia.
Yeah. They would not appreciate a brown-eyed wink. They would not be appreciated.
They would never play the rusty trombone.
They would not play the rusty trombone.
Blow that rusty trombone.
That's a great Squirrel Nut
Thanks,
Zipper
Squirrel
song.
Nut Zippers. My kids were there and it was great. They were like, blow the rusty trombone.
Yeah.
I'm like, ha ha.
The kids have no idea what this means.
This
That's a
is
super
great.
dirty song. That's a great song.
I know.
We'll just play a clip from that.
Great job. That was fun.
Fear of rectums.
Fear of rectums.
Fear of Cody's. I mean rectums.
I mean, Cody's.
Oh,
That dude's
right.
a fucking unseasoned chicken wing.
That was our what the fear for this week. If you have any suggestions for what the fear, please let us know. You can always email us too. We have an email, someofallfearpodcast@gmail.com.
Drew will give you his personal cell phone number too if you just want to chat.
I just want people to talk to
He
me.
just wants people
just
to
want-
like
I
him.
just want
He wants to be
friends. I just
part
want to
of
have some
things.
friends.
Aw, that's true.
Just want people to love me.
We just want feardos like us.
Are you ready to get into this fear? So what's cool about this episode, and I've been thinking about this all week as we've been preparing for this, and we talked about it. We did kind of announce it on the last episode, but we're diving into phobophobia, which is the fear of fear. Fear of fear. It's the fear of phobias. This is like kind of a special episode because it really
it's a
very special episode. Do. It's like the Different Strokes episode where, the guy at the bike store was touching the little kids. It's a very special episode. It's one that you need to make sure you talk to your kids about. There will be no molestation.
I'm so excited.
It's like the Jesse Spano.
So excited.
The Jesse Spano
I'm
did
so
too many caffeine pills
scared.
episode. This is a trademark. This is going to be a trademark episode.
TM.
Because
Copyright.
this really gets to the heart of what our whole thing is about, which is what makes you afraid, right? The whole fear, like being afraid of fear or what is fear? Why do we love fear sometimes? Why do we enjoy it with horror movies? And why do we, sometimes do people completely avoid any chance that they might be scared? Those kind of things. So those are the things we're going to dive into with this phobia, which I think is really cool. Don't you?
Yeah, I like the fear of fear. And I especially like saying it like fear. And every time you say fear, I hear fear.
Stop.
So
Just stop it now, though. You can stop yourself.
I can't. I just
Yeah, you and
can't.
Creature Feature.
I know. I got to practice the other day and she was like, oh my God. And we just both started cracking up. I find this really interesting. And also how it develops and kind of makes things a little bit worse. So yeah, I'm totally ready to get into this. Let's give them more fear for their ears.
More fear for your ear. Ooh, I like that. That's a t-shirt.
More fears for
More
your ears.
fears for your ears. That's good. That is good stuff.
TM, copyrighted.
Trademarked. You heard
all
it
that
here
stuff.
first. And without further ado, we are going to dive into our phobia for today, which is phobophobia, the fear of fear. Hey, Kris.
Hey, Drew.
Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast?
Why, yes, I have.
When we were trying to get this podcast off the ground, we had a lot of questions. Like, how do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen to? How do we make money podcasting? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now just by reading this ad.
Right now?
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now?
That means if you want to get a podcast going and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm, anchor.fm/start. Join me and Kris and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. We can't wait to hear your podcast. Fear. So phobophobia is literally from Phobos, which we are very familiar with, which literally just translates as fear.
We
so
live and
literally
breathe the
translates as
Phobos.
fear. So that etymology is pretty simple.
Mhm.
And this is kind of well, why don't you dive into it before I bring up any of the other stuff that I have written down? Let's go ahead and dive right in.
Sure. So a lot of the background for these episodes and for my knowledge base on just fear in general came from the book Scream by Margie Kerr. And
didn't you just get that?
I did
from our friend Veronica?
But I had been drawing from it from articles, from tons of things written by her. So I had heard about it. I had heard it on podcasts. So I kind of was really familiar with it.
What's the author's name? Sorry.
Margie Kerr.
Margie Kerr. And the book is Scream.
Scream by Margie Kerr. And it's the thrilling adventures in the science of fear. Basically, she starts out talking about how she's studying fear in the context of this extreme haunted house. And it's really interesting. She gives a lot of examples, but the one thing that I kind of wanted to bring today was that as we explore the fear of fear, understanding that there's actually 5 very distinct types of fear. The first one is acute threat. So something that is now and threatens your livelihood or your life. A potential threat, something later that could impact you and your livelihood or your life. A sustained threat, so something at any point that keeps your anxiety at a heightened level. Another type of fear is loss. Mm-hmm. So it's not threat related. It's loss related. It's grief related. And then the final type of fear is that frustrative non-reward fear. And that is the type of fear where we feel like we're spinning our wheels.
Oh my gosh, we've had that lately.
Right?
That's a type of fear.
So yeah, it's like that fear of being.
It's like it's like frustration.
It is, but it's that fear of being stuck almost.
Of not moving forward or not progressing the way you want to.
Right. Of not
whatever.
feeling it.
I feel that.
And so
for sure.
And so she talks about that a lot and how the brain processes fear into 2 ways. First is low road processing, which is kind of like the take no chances processing. Everything is a threat if it has this much threat, everything is a threat. High road processing is more subtle, like I guess. It's like consider the options, okay. What's real, more like grounded. And so, yeah, that low road processing, we see a lot in fear responses, that shoot first, ask questions later kind of response.
So explain, give me an example.
So
what does that look like?
So when you go through a haunted house, you know that you're not actually in any danger, right?
Right.
But your brain, low road processing, completely overrides that kind of more rational processing.
Where you're like, I'm safe,
says,
it's okay.
Yeah.
And says, no. Everything around me,
you're not.
Everything around me looks like I shouldn't be okay.
Like,
Is that a roller coaster response too? Is that the same type of
thrill ride response? But it's also the reason why we kind of enjoy that sensation, because we kind of surrender to these feelings and to this high arousal state. And that takes that thinking brain offline temporarily.
But we know we're okay.
But we really know we're okay.
Safe. But so we can enjoy the fear in a safe
in the context of safety.
Which I think we'll get to later too, but that's kind of what horror movies do too, right?
Right.
I mean, they allow us to kind of experience this fear in a safe environment in a way that's not going to actually threaten us.
Right, exactly. And one of the quotes from the book, actually from a person named Edmund Burke, he said, "Terror is a passion which always produces delight when it does not press too close." So when it does not threaten our sense of true safety too closely,
then it can be fun.
Then it can actually be really fun, right? Yeah. And think about where our fear responses were derived from, right? Humans who overcame fears to kill wild beasts, who ventured out into the dark and unknown to explore things. Those were our ancestors that were rewarded with the gift of surviving.
Right.
So we have this fear-based thing inside of all of us.
Well, and that's kind of extreme sports too, right? I mean, that's
Mhm.
what drives people probably to do a lot of that kind of thing as well.
Hell yeah.
I mean, that's the same. If I'm going to go jump out of an airplane, there's a lot of risk. I mean, there's risk there. There's risk there that's not your normal risk, but people do it because they get that fear response, right?
Right, because that fear response is so attractive and so excitatory.
And that's tied to our adrenaline.
Absolutely.
Right? So
yeah.
that excites us.
And it's also tied to the fact that we want opportunities to challenge ourselves and to overcome these things, because when we confront these things and we resolve them, we leave that situation more confident than we came. Even if it's a roller coaster and it's predictable that everything's going to go fine, we still leave that a little more confident because we overcame that. We overcame that fear. We faced it. We experienced it. We processed it and we resolved it.
Well, I remember I went to soccer camp. I think I was like 9 years old, and we were in like Long Beach, University of Long Beach or something, University of California, Long Beach. And we went to Disneyland for a day. And I think most of the kids I was hanging out with were a little older, and, Space Mountain, like went in the line and
so fun.
And almost ran out the security exit
every time,
and just was freaking out. Right, first roller coaster, first time ever being on something like that. I think I was 8 years old, and I remember that feeling like there's no way I'm going to do this thing.
No.
And then when you do it,
you're like, yeah.
Then you go on it 15 times.
Let's talk about Hank.
Right?
We took him to California Adventure.
Same thing, right?
You know, I took Hank on his first like real roller coaster, and of course, we did not tell him that there was an upside down loop.
Yeah.
Ha ha. So I took him on, and we got the front of the roller coaster. Like for your first experience, front of the coaster, he was what, 8,
7,
9, 7, 8.
I think he was 7.
And we launch off, and of course, in the line, he's so fucking nervous and just shaking, and like it's gonna, like, is it gonna be okay?
But he doesn't even know.
But he's really
there's an upside down
excited.
part.
He's also really excited. He just thinks it's gonna go fast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, buddy, it's gonna go fast. And we turn the corner, and he sees the track in front of us as we're going, and he sees the loop, and he looks at me and he goes, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oopsie!"
It's the best.
Whoops.
Actually,
Sorry.
I'm looking at the picture of it right now. There was a picture of you on that very first roller coaster
when I took him. Yeah, and he was none too happy, but the
he
second
loved it. He went on it how many times? Like he wanted
so
to go
many.
on it. He wanted to go on that ride over and over and
because
over.
When
he went on it
he-
like 6 times.
when he, when something like that kind of fear is encountered in that full throttle physical environment, it takes them to their emotional boundaries, but safely, and then brings them back better
And they go, "Ooh, I want to."
than when they
I wanna do
arrive.
that
Like
again.
I can do
I
that.
can do that. I want to do that again.
That's what I
fun.
want to see in Hudson, especially at like the water park and stuff. I want to see him challenge that experience of fear that he has right now and overcome it, and then know that he can do anything.
Yeah.
And that confidence that it comes with.
And that's
that.
a kid thing.
Oh,
That's just
yeah.
one of those things that you do as you develop. You learn kind of. That's why your first scary movie is like a thing, because you're looking, you're peeking. You really don't want to be watching it, but then you do.
But you do.
And then you realize you're going to be okay. That no matter what you're watching, it's just a movie, and you're going to be okay. Ultimately.
Right. And that's that idea of that we can sail our ship into a very chaotic storm and navigate our way out. And I think that's part of the reason why some people are so gravitated towards experiencing fear in these controlled, safer doses, so to speak. It's almost like a medication.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is in a clinical perspective, from a clinical perspective, what is an actual phobophobic? look like?
So a
Am I jumping ahead of you too much? Because I know you were kind of going into
no, it's okay. I was
an intro, and I was digging it.
Yeah,
so.
no, it's okay. The last thing I wanted to mention was that I found really interesting in this research was that there's actually a nerve called the vagus nerve that runs from the brain to the bottom of the stomach that plays a big role in how we respond to threats.
So hold on. Does what happened in the vagus nerve stay in the vagus nerve? I'm just
know it. You know it does.
Sorry. Couldn't pass that up.
No, that was perfect. So yeah, there's this like umbrella of nerves that goes into our stomachs, which is further evidence to me for the gut-brain link, and also the gut as the second brain. We've talked a lot about that recently.
Yeah.
But there's this umbrella of nerves that in the gut that collects information from the gut and sends that to our lizard brain, our limbic brain, in order to process whether or not there's a threat. So when we talk about our gut feeling, that's a literal thing.
And I'm guessing probably when we feel nervous in our stomach. Right?
It's a
nervous stomach, and that's a real thing. That's literally
that is our threat
stomach
response. Our stomach brain telling our brain that something tis not right.
Tis not
right in the world.
Something tis not right.
Tis not right this fortnight. So the other thing that I read was that when this nerve is severed in rats, they actually show a decreased fear in response to innate threats or threats that should be threatening, like predators. So if you sever the vagus nerve in a rat, it's not going to run away from a hawk. Like it would just
it's not doing what it's supposed to do.
Meh, whatever.
I'm gonna die.
Right, exactly. And so I'm curious if, and this is where it kind of flows into the fear of fear. I'm curious if folks who maybe experience this heightened experience of fear and this heightened fear to the experience of fear,
or the idea of they might be afraid,
right?
Or they might be,
the anticipation,
or they might gain a phobia, or they might do something that's
right. I'm wondering if these folks, what's going on in their gut, like what kind of
lots of farts, tons of farts.
Yeah,
that's what happens in your gut.
Not a doctor.
Yep. Tons of farts. That's what I heard. Phobophobics, lots of farts. Is that true? Medically?
No. I'm not a doctor though.
Oh, not a doctor.
I mean, I think lots of farts happen with all of us, but that's very sophomoric of you.
Shut up. You're sophomoric.
So phobophobics, what they really are sensing or fearing is the internal sensations or the fear of feeling fear associated with an anxiety or a phobia. So like that pre-fear kind of, it appears between the anxiety and panic and the thing that's actually feared.
Well, and so when I was reading up on it, there was a lot written about how basically this is akin to generalized anxiety disorder, right? So generalized anxiety disorder is kind of it's very similar, right? Because it's an agoraphobia we talked about. And agoraphobics a lot of times have this kind of very general sense of fears. They can develop them with, like we were talking about with my mom. She has her sister. Well, she talked about when she would talk about her phobia with her sister, who was also very phobic. Her sister would tell her, "Do not tell me your specific phobias. Don't tell me when you get panic attacks. I get panic attacks when I'm on a bridge.
Because then I will be afraid of doing that."
She said,
so that I will fear the panic attack. I will then
develop that same phobia. If you tell me that you get panic attacks on bridges, I will now be scared to cross a bridge. She said that because that's how it was for her.
I'm wondering what's going on. Like, are you thinking, oh, maybe that's something that I should be afraid of? If someone else is afraid of that and gets panic attacks, why am I not?
It's just that seed in your brain that just maybe I'm going to have that as well.
Right. Which is what makes phobophobia really interesting. There's not that environmental stimulus per se that it takes. It's just this fear that's experienced before the fear.
It's the thought of the fear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's that thought of the fear. And you avoid that feared object in order to avoid that thought, in order to avoid the fear and feeling the fear. So it's like this vicious, intensifying Fearnado or Fearcane or Fearnami or
totally-
Fearquake or Fearvalanche or
I'm totally getting Ian Ziering to star in all of those movies.
or Wild
For Sci-Fi
Fears
Channel.
or
Tsunami Sharks? Is that what the next? Oh,
Tsunami.
Tsunami Zombies. Zombie Tsunami?
Zombie Tsunami.
Was that what it was called? The new one coming out on Sci-Fi that we saw?
Do you want to hear my last
Oh, sorry.
my
Keep
last
going.
weather
Yes.
pun? A Saphir storm.
Oh, boy.
Raging Wild Fears.
Oh, man.
These are great.
Are they, though?
They're great to me.
Are they?
So again, this is not a fear that's necessarily developed as a part of another fear, but it does contribute to maintaining it or gaining new fears.
You know, it's when we took Hudson and when we took the boys to go see Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, our feature presentation today.
I must not have seen half the movie because I was watching him and the woman next to me.
Yeah, it was hilarious. But before we went, right, Hudson went from, I'm not going to go. I don't want to go. I'll just stay home.
I'm good.
With
mom.
Or I'll stay with Chris, or Chris won't go, whatever. Originally it was, I'm not going to go. I was just going to take the two older boys. So there was my son and his best friend, 11-year-olds who really wanted to go see it. Hudson has always been kind of one of those 1 foot in, 1 foot out horror guys, but he really deep down loves them. You can tell that he really does.
He'll come sit and watch them with us.
Oh yeah. So he was, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. And then finally, like the day before, he's like, I want to go. I want to go see it. I want to go see it. Okay. But the whole way there, and as we're sitting waiting for the trailers, and we're doing, he is just,
you could visibly feel his anxiety.
So nervous. Like that anticipation was
but
brutal.
I like that, because if you don't experience that and challenge it and develop it, there's a potential that you develop a pathological lack of fear.
Yeah,
and then you have no way to deal with fear.
Just call that being a pussy. That's just called being a pussy. Being a big old pussy.
Is that in the DSM?
That's in the DSM. It's called BOS, BOP. It's called BOP syndrome.
Big old pussy syndrome.
Big old pussy syndrome.
That is not in the DSM. Good Lord.
I am pretty certain that's there.
Oh, that's in the Drew SM.
Drew MS. I am raising my boys not to be bops. That's my parental advice for today.
Don't be a bop.
Big old pussy syndrome. Okay, what's next?
I don't know. You were talking, and then
sorry,
and then I brought up Hudson.
I really tickled myself.
I know you did.
So Hudson, yeah. So he was, but the point was that pre-anxiety, that anxiety of, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this. I am too, the thought of the thing produces so much anxiety.
Right. And another example would be someone who experiences an underlying, like you said, a generalized anxiety, an unaddressed anxiety disorder, like social anxiety disorder. Someone who has something like that, who also experiences irritable bowel syndrome as a symptom, can actually display that fear of having the IBS symptoms become greater than the actual social anxiety symptoms. So I'm afraid.
Why you got to bring up my college years?
I'm sorry. I'm just helping you try and piece together the reasons why you are the way you are.
It was mostly my freshman year,
right?
But you
used avoidance, and that actually reinforced the social anxiety and the IBS response. So this fear of fears, it kind of magnifies,
builds on itself.
And it builds and builds. Fear avalanche.
So then
Fear NATO.
Fear NATO.
Fearicane. Fear Nami?
You want to keep going?
Fearquake?
Fearquake? What was the other one?
Fear Nami?
Severe weather?
Severe storm? Raging Wild Fears?
I'm glad you got to go through that list again.
I know.
I really am.
I'm tickled by it. Anyways.
I'm proud of you.
I'm so glad.
You're so punny. So punny.
Whatever. But the thing that I do want to kind of wrap back around is this fear of anticipating the fear. If experiencing that feared stimulus with other people actually leads to that this thing called stimulus co-attention, where participating with others can create a more intense emotional response, either positively or negatively. So, for instance, with Hudson, he participated in it with all of us. I think he was comforted by all of us being there.
Sure.
But his emotional response to the movie was higher because we were all there and experiencing it with him, and he perceives us all experiencing that same emotion, or that same not emotion regulation, but like emotional intensity. There we go. So, boom shakalaka.
Is that in your notes?
No, boom shakalaka.
Yeah,
that would be something I would write.
It's really interesting to me though, because I think I think the thought of we people who are afraid of fear are not horror movie fans.
But people who are
right?
horror movie fans are fearphiliacs.
Fearophilia, right? We talk about phobias versus philias. And so, obviously people who enjoy horror tend to love that fear feeling, right? That being scared, to the point where, I know a lot of horror fans who are real big horror fans who are kind of like, man, I can't be scared anymore.
Right.
And it's a bummer because it's like not being able to get high,
right. Exactly.
Not being able to get drunk.
It's
or
this
whatever.
tolerance.
It's like that thing,
it's a tolerance that you've built. And I'm sure it's an actual thing that exists. There's a research lab in Reno that studies fear that we need to get in touch with, because I think that would be amazing. But yeah, phobophiliacs are folks that kind of chase the high of experiencing what it's like to test those emotional boundaries and come back safely.
When you have those people who just they will not do horror movies. They will not do,
like Horror Virgin.
They will not do haunted houses.
Although I think he's kind of coming around.
Yeah, I think Todd's starting to like.
I think Todd likes the high.
I could be wrong. They may, that would ruin their whole setup. So can't let that happen. But those people who will not do haunted houses. They will not do horror movies. They will not do roller coasters. They won't do anything, they won't jump out of an airplane. They won't,
anything.
And what's weird is there's people who will do some of those things, but not others. So it's kind of, it can always be a little bit mixed, but some people just do not do. I don't like to be scared. Like, I don't want to be scared. And I've had lots of people tell me that, I've told them, oh, I'm, really into horror movies. Oh man, I don't do horror movies.
Yeah,
I do not.
I don't.
And
they'll
bring up some benign movie, or something.
Like I saw
like Dave, like our buddy Dave and Poltergeist, I saw Poltergeist when I was a kid. I don't want to do horror. I don't like horror movies, did not like that movie. So something either when they were young or as they've developed and gotten older, something has blocked out that desire to have that adrenaline rush of fear.
Well, either that or it is intimidating what you might feel if you let yourself watch these things that do cause such intense emotional reactions intentionally. Like, you can go to a rom-com and just be like, right? You can go to a scary movie and be fucking scarred till you're 70,
Yeah.
The movies don't generally move us emotionally and physically like that on a regular basis. And now we've got a whole genre that's goal is to imprint itself in your mind and in your
in the most extreme way possible
forever.
Most of the time. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we're going to try to scare you in every way we possibly can. And so depending on what kind of genre, what kind of part of horror you're talking about, it's going to try to touch on, which is why we're doing this whole podcast, right? Because the whole point is that horror movies prey on our most primal fears. They prey on our phobias.
They prey on our base instincts.
Yeah. All those things and so at every different type of horror movie, all does it a little differently. They all prey on different types of
they
fears.
all threaten that. And culturally,
which is why some people like some horror movies over others, or, oh, this one scares me more than this one does. Well, that's a personal preference thing.
Right.
Which is why I get so pissed on these stupid forums when people are like, this movie's lame.
Cody.
This is a better movie, and blah, blah, blah. All the Codys on the horror because it's so personal. It really is personal. Your fears are your fears, and the things that you find scary are personal. Now, personally, I like almost all horror. Like, I really enjoy it all. But some things resonate with me more than others.
Right.
Right. So yeah. Do you have anything you want to add before we dive in to something a little different today?
No, I'm excited. Let's do this.
So that was our little breakdown of Phobophobia. We are not gonna do a regular movie for our honorable mention. We saw this documentary this week and we thought, hey, what a great opportunity to kind of talk about this phobia.
It was rad.
This documentary was exactly what we're talking about today. So in our honorable mention today, we are going to talk about, actually it's been out for a few years, but it just popped up on Shudder this week. And that is 2014's documentary, Why Horror?
I think one of the great things about horror is that they really reflect what the fear of the moment is.
Everybody in the world is afraid. We're all afraid of the same things together.
It's a safe fright when you're in a movie. And I think that enables you to sort of relish it, to sort of enjoy it or look into yourself and say, why am I afraid of this?
What is it about horror that makes people react the way they do? Millions of people love it, and yet horror fans are often misunderstood. My name is Tal Zimmerman, and I love horror. It's not just a hobby for me, it's a lifestyle. I write reviews and articles for horror magazines. I'm an obsessive collector of memorabilia. I attend conventions as a fan and sometimes as a speaker. Horror has come a long way since it first got its hooks into me. As a devout fan, I used to feel like an outsider. But nowadays, I look around, and horror is everywhere. So now is the perfect time to dig deeper. I need to look beyond my own experiences. I need to know, why horror?
So yeah, honorable mention today is a documentary.
I like that.
Yeah. So I just thought that'd be kind of a cool change of pace. Just to kind of talk about
Some new.
a little bit more about
Something
kind
different.
of, yeah, a little bit more about what we were just talking about, which is really why do we like these things?
Do we like this?
Why do we enjoy horror movies? Why is it that
Why do we do
horror
this to
fans
ourselves?
put themselves through this
One word. Trauma.
trauma? Why do trauma?
Trauma. Sorry, not trauma. Thinking like Momo, not trauma.
Trauma?
Trauma, not trauma.
Why do we put ourselves through trauma? Because they're not really scary. They're just disgusting.
Yeah, that's why.
I love it. I love me some trauma. So we're gonna talk about so this is kind of about phobophilia, right? So we're talking about
A little bit.
phobophobia. This is more about the phobophilia side of things.
The
Why do
love
we
of fear.
love this? Where does it come from? How did we get this weird desire to want to scare the shit out of ourselves? But this documentary is called Why Horror. It's on Shudder right now. It's directed by Nicholas Kleeman and Rob Lindsay. And it's a feature documentary following horror fan Tal Zimmerman, who's the host, as he looks at the psychology of horror around the world in order to understand why we love to be scared, which is perfect because we asked the question, what makes you afraid?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So why do we like to be scared? What is the whole purpose behind that? And it has a lot of great interviews. Alexander Aja, who directed Mirrors, which we just talked about last week, was interviewed. John Carpenter, Don Coscarelli, Barbara Crampton, Eli
Zachary
Roth,
Quinto as Eli Roth.
You always think Eli Roth looks like Zachary Quinto. He does look.
That was
I used to
Zachary.
confuse them a lot.
That was
actually.
Zachary Quinto as Eli Roth
You think so?
in Why Horror.
In Why Horror?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well,
Elijah
now you
Wood
know.
does some narration, but it's a great little documentary, and it really does talk about how fear is just this truly universal emotion.
And
right?
it's also kind of a uniting emotion because of that, you know? It's a shared experience emotion. We all have fear.
Everybody in the world is afraid. We're all afraid of the same things together. It binds us as people.
So, everybody's afraid, right? It binds us as people. It binds us as people. It brings us together for some reason because it's a universal human experience, right? It's an emotion that we all have.
Yeah, and it's an emotion that has a really incredible lasting impact. Fear has a very hardwired, direct path in order to escalate itself to first priority. And so people who seek out that kind of experience know, number one, that they're doing it in a safe manner in which they can process it. And number two, when they leave that, scary convention or that scary movie, they're generally laughing and smiling ear to ear.
Oh yeah,
and
they're pumped.
They're experiencing the after effects of the afterglow, I should say.
And that's what, like George Romero in the documentary says, movies are a safe fright. It allows you to ask yourself why you're afraid of it. You can sit there and kind of analyze it from a safe distance and go, I hate clowns, but that's why I love being scared by Pennywise or whatever. You can kind of safely approach these topics, which I think is a lot of the reason why we watch these things, right? We can see them, we can safely consume them and not completely lose our shit.
Yeah, we can prove that we can handle those emotions. And I love how this documentary framed that in the context of horror.
Yeah, and it talks about the kind of, it goes back a little bit into the history and we as children, there's a reason why we love fairy tales, right? Fairy tales all have that horror element.
They used to be dark as shit.
And the old, if you go back, right? If you go back
dark as shit,
to like the 16th to the 19th centuries, and I mean even like Little Red Riding Hood goes back to as far as the 10th century. They're fucking brutal.
Kids get ate.
They're bloody. They're
fed.
Horrific, right? They're these terrible stories in the original, especially in the original versions, right? We water the fuck down. Water the fuck out of them. Watered down the fuck out of them. I think that's what I was trying to say.
Watered down the fuck out of them?
We
watered them down the fuck out.
We watered them way down, compared to what the originals were.
Right.
Nowadays. But
we made them softer, but are we doing anybody justice by avoiding those kinds of feelings and not learning how to process them and how to, emotion regulation is such a huge piece of what many people are missing in terms of their mental health.
Their emotional maturity.
Well, not even emotional maturity in terms of their mental health. Emotion regulation, if not taught very young, it's tough to learn how to regulate yourself when you're older.
And it's one of the reasons why I haven't shielded our 8-year-old from horror movies that much. Like I'm not going to let him watch crude things or things that are.
It's one reason
that are overtly whatever. But but as far as like just scary, like, okay, he can handle Poltergeist. He can handle, because he's watching that in a safe environment with us. He's learning how to kind of deal with those things in the right setting.
He's learning how to manage those emotions in a safe way. And we haven't just done that with scary movies. We've done that with the sex talk and with talking about gang violence and person-on-person violence.
We just had a conversation about prostitution the other day. He asked the question.
And women's sex work.
Yeah, he talked about something about a brothel. He said, I think he asked what a brothel was because it came up on the radio or something. And so we're like, oh, okay, well, we live in Nevada, or the only legal brothel state. Let's have that conversation,
Well,
it's like at least give him the outline, because hey, you know what? He needs to learn it at some point and learn it from somewhere what those things are. And, and you explain it the right way.
He needs to know how to handle those emotions and process them and know that he can experience that and be okay on the other side, and that's that distress tolerance and emotion regulation skills that get taught very early on. So if say someone has had some very, very bad trauma early on or abuse, their ability to regulate their emotions or to tolerate that distress may be tapped out because they are still processing that trauma actively.
Yeah.
And so those may be some of the folks who are really avoidant of feeling fear because maybe they already experience a heightened version of fear every single day
in their real life.
and they
Sure.
don't want any fucking
Sure.
more.
Sure.
You know?
Absolutely. And you know, one of the other things that was brought up in this documentary that I thought was made a really good point is, you know, as communities, you know, if you look in the Roman times, during the Roman reign and even during, you know, in the medieval times and over in Europe, and I guess in the US as well, you know, Roman gladiators would beat the shit out of each other and kill each other. And, you know, there was the Colosseum thing where, you know, people would be tossed in and ripped to shreds. That was sport. That was entertainment. That was, people would go to watch those things. Executions were public and are still public in many places in the world where people gather around to watch people be killed.
There
is something a hell of a lot better and more healthy about putting that into a movie and watching those kind of things safely and not in a exploitive, and well, it might be exploitive, but not in an exploitive manner where it's actually really happening in real life. That's got to be better, right? I mean, it's got to be a healthier way to consume those things. Because as a human race, we apparently are drawn to that. We're drawn to that kind of gnarly live death kind of thing, you know, and obviously it's got to be cathartic in some way to do it in a horror movie and not in, you know, not actually having it in the public square.
Well, I think about our experience at the museums of death, you know, going through and kind of processing.
LA and New Orleans, awesome places.
Yes,
go visit
amazing.
them.
My favorites. And I feel like
not for the faint of heart.
No, but I feel like when you do experience that and you do challenge those emotions that come up and you do explore the thoughts that come up, some really, really dark. You wrestle with some demons during that experience and you come out and you're a little closer to yourself. You're a little more finely tuned.
It's true. Yeah.
With yourself.
I remember the first time
you're a little more aware.
Went down the car wreck hallway.
Oh fuck. That was
the one in LA. And I remember being like actually getting lightheaded, which I don't think I'd ever experienced that before.
Well, didn't Dave have to leave when we went to New Orleans?
I think, yeah, he was not. Yeah, he wasn't doing well. And I had a friend who also, when we did, I think we talked about this before, but the body images exhibit.
Yes.
It's called our body.
Bodies.
Something
exhibit. Like that.
I had a friend who didn't make it through like 10 minutes of it. She had to leave. She got totally like almost fainted. So there's something there. And there's definitely something about processing those things in a safe environment or an environment. Now, the thing about Museum of Death is it's real. It's real pictures. It's real.
And I think that
life
hits
things.
even
And that hits
harder.
That hits you more, right?
To me, yeah.
Whereas horror movies, no matter how gnarly it is, no matter if it's Cannibal Holocaust or, you know, I Spit on Your Grave or whatever, Last House on the Left, these really brutal horror movies.
We know it's not real.
We know it's still a movie, right? Ultimately. And you can traverse those really depraved parts of yourself that for some reason has that voyeuristic tendency to want to watch that thing, but still go, I'm still not watching it in the public square and clapping when the people are being quartered, like they used to do.
We have a desire to want to experience the limits of our boundaries emotionally and physically, but without challenging our morals.
Yeah. And there is something about this from a very young age, right? We love having personifications of evil. Mm-hmm. We love having personifications of that scare us, these villains, right? That's why so many horror movies have a villain, like a central person that is the embodiment of evil or the embodiment of
this fear,
whatever that fear may be, right?
Or this insecurity.
Or they pull out your fear.
Right.
And they hold it up in front of your face. Right. And so I put together a new top 10 list. My top 10 scariest horror villains of all time. My number 10 was Samara from The Ring.
I didn't like that one, mostly because she came out of the television.
Yeah, I just found her extremely creepy.
I found her, I think, unnerving.
Yeah, there was something about that movie that just really that I really enjoyed it, and I know the original Japanese one is also super, awesome and creepy too.
I was reading,
and it's Sado. Her name was Sadoku.
I was reading on kind of some of the cultural differences in horror between the Americas and the Japanese. And specifically speaking, like the Japanese horror culture really focuses on the ideas of like what you do in life affects your death, and
Sure.
how you die affects how you live after life. And
it's that generational haunting, generational sins of your fathers, sins of your, the things that
come back to haunt you,
right.
but from a familial perspective. Yep. And it's just very different than like like traditional American, like slice or dice or horror. So it's really interesting.
Yep. So that was my number 10. My number 9, Norman Bates from Psycho.
See, okay.
I think there's something, and honestly,
is there something wrong with me that I don't even count serial killers as like scary?
Oh, I totally have more than one on here, but it's funny. Well, and I put him in there, and I didn't include what's his name from American Psycho. I can't think of his character name, but
Jack.
That was those kind of characters that are just. Well, I don't know if I put him in the same category. Norman Bates is kind of the boy next door, so that's the character that you see this guy who looks so unassuming and so normal.
Dark side.
This is BTK. This is, I guess, maybe probably because Manhunter. We were just watching Manhunter. Maybe that's why.
Manhunter? Manhunter? It's
Mindhunter. I see Manhunter. Manhunter's a movie. But that kind of unassuming character that's next door, that, your fears are that somebody very close to you, the person that you talk to, your best friend, whoever it is, could be a serial killer.
I mean, one in 20 people in some high population areas.
It's creepy.
Is not a serial killer, but a sociopath.
Norman Bates. Number 8, I have Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw.
Okay.
Which was creepy. A lot of number ones. A lot of people had him as their number one list. And I got to tell you, I don't find Texas Chainsaw that scary. Horror Virgin has that as their 10 out of 10 scary scale. I don't find Texas Chainsaw that scary. Because that's just like the crazy psychopath, which I don't think the crazy psychopath is that scary. Although I will say I included it because, I mean, the dude wears people's faces.
Do you think it would be a lot scarier if we lived out in like Silver Springs, Nevada?
Maybe if you were out in I guess that's the part that scares me about that movie. If I did have to put that in, I put it in my list because he is a super scary character. I think the thought that you could end up, this is The Hills Have Eyes too, right? Kind of, you could end up someplace with just a total group of psychopaths.
Dude, when I was working with the social workers, going out there and, going out in the middle of nowhere in the desert, I was like, at least within 100 yards around me in any direction is probably a body. Some bodies around here or some sort of a shed with someone locked in it. I don't know. Something bad's going on.
That's my 8. My number 7 is, and this goes back to childhood, Freddy Krueger. And I think Freddy Krueger, especially because Freddy Krueger focuses on
dreams and sleep
but he also focuses on your fears. He brings out your specific fears. He's going to prey on your fears. If you're not afraid of him, then he's not effective. Right. He can't do his job if you're not afraid of him.
But I didn't see it young enough for it to terrify me.
Yeah.
Like my first foray.
But I always kind of liked him. He was always the character that and then corny Freddy, as we get into like 3, 4, 5, and Freddy's dead, he becomes a caricature of himself, and he's not nearly as scary as he is just, Freddy versus
cartoon, Jason.
Freddy as a cartoon character
was my first foray into Freddy. So it was like, oh, this guy is
Freddy versus Jason.
Hilarious.
I'm so sorry.
And then it was like,
that's really a tragedy.
H2O. And then I kind of went backwards.
H2O was, that was Friday the 13th, wasn't it? No, Halloween H2O.
Yes. Sorry.
All right. Number 6, Annie Wilkes from Misery.
Oh, fuck. If I had remembered these people, that maybe they would have been on my list.
Yeah. Because, Annie Wilkes is a good one.
No. Yeah. No. And because 2x4, no. Sledgehammer, no. Yep. None of it. Mm-hmm. No.
And I think just that.
Again, more psychological.
Psychopath, right?
Out of control. Like, she has you out of control. You are just at her whim. She can
do anything.
Torturing you.
Yeah.
in like the worst
and you don't know
ways.
what she's, and you don't know what way she's going to go.
No.
Like, you don't know where she's going to take it. So Annie Wilkes, number 5. So, and I actually adjusted this at the last minute because I was like, you know what? I got to throw this in there a little bit off the map, but Princess Mombi from Return to Oz scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. And after rewatching it again, I went, damn it, she's still freaking scary.
She's pretty scary.
Like, that's a scary character, and a scary character that really brings out those childhood fears, and watching that movie as like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, whenever I watched it for the first time, fucking scary, man. I don't like Princess Mombi and her freaking running around with no head on and shit. Not a fan.
Putting on the different heads.
Yeah, not cool. Number 4, Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs. But also the guy that you'd kind of still like to sit down and have a meal with, maybe some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
A lot of these serial killer types don't make my list because
you want to talk to them.
Because I
want to hang out with them.
I went to school to study how to figure these guys out.
I'm not saying I wouldn't want to sit down with every single one of these at one point.
Do they terrify me? Yes. But like, do I consider them like my scariest villains?
Think about how Hannibal Lecter, though, like the things that he would, like how he was able to almost be supernatural in the way that he would do, like when he killed all the guards and when he did, when he escaped and when he does, the guy just, there's something beyond just the persona that is almost like
inhuman.
Yeah. And that's always what.
But I think that's the caricature of our deepest rooted fears, is that there's something inhuman in us all.
Oh, for sure. My number 3 is the Tall Man from Phantasm.
Fuck.
I like the Tall Man.
The Tall Man.
He's pretty creepy. I mean, he's just a great character too. Like Angus Grimm is so cool, and what a cool character, and just foreboding, and his voice is so intimidating, and you just know if he grabs you, he's going to be able to throw you through a wall. So definitely one of my top 3. Number 2, Pazuzu, the demon from Exorcist. That inhabited Linda Blair.
I didn't know that was the name of it.
Yep, Pazuzu. The Exorcist
sounds like something delicious you order at BJ's Brewhouse.
It does. Yeah, that's
with some ice cream.
That's a Pazuki.
Can I have a Pazuzu?
I would like to have a Pazuzu with ice cream.
I'd like
please.
a half chocolate chip, half peanut butter Pazuzu with a la mode. Thank you.
And Father Marin's going to come down and he's going
to bless that shit because it's going to be the most delicious dessert I will ever consume.
Delicious demon you've ever eaten.
Demonic dessert.
But I think the Exorcist is another type of character, right? You have this demon that's this ties into this spiritual kind of our spiritual sense and our spiritual side. Whether or not you believe in God or you don't believe in God,
it's something otherworldly that has inhabited.
Absolutely. Don't worry about the dog. She's running into the backyard to deal with the dog because the dog was barking. Now she's tripping over the dog. Oh my gosh, now she's breaking.
Shit.
Now she has knocked over all of her line of drinks. Shit. Man, this took a fun turn.
Wow. Ouch.
What a way to build up my number 1.
I know. And now.
Holy shit. That was a train wreck.
I slipped.
It's not even gonna sound. I mean, it's like Pennywise the Clown. It's my number 1 because it was my, and even now after watching the new one the other day with you because you had never seen it, so we were watching the first part of the new one. It still freaks me out. Like Pennywise still fucking scares the shit out of me.
I really enjoyed that movie.
It was great.
A lot.
It was great.
Like it scared me and he scared me, but he wouldn't be one of the scariest characters.
To me, he's the scariest because he attaches to my childhood.
Sure.
So he attaches to, he's still scary today as a character. And I've always gravitated towards supernatural characters as being more scary anyway. So I'm like, human characters, I don't care if you're a psycho or whatever, like I could still kill you. I kill you.
Human characters,
supernatural
are way
characters
worse.
To me are worse because you can't kill them.
Oh my gosh.
I'm totally opposite.
I am like, people are way worse because
Well, people are worse in general.
Because it's
People suck,
really
but-
in there. Like, we all have that dark side. And then the other stuff that, you know, the other horror genres are more caricatures of that.
That's why it's my list
I know.
and not your list. All right. Well, we are going to dive into one of the more universal introductions to horror for anybody born after about 1975.
Pretty iconic stories.
That we went and saw this week on opening night, actually 2 days after it opened, I guess, with our boys, and it was a blast. So let's dive into our feature presentation today. Scary stories to tell in the dark.
And now our feature presentation.
What's that?
It's her book of scary stories. Some people believe if we repeat stories often enough, they become real. They make us who we are. That can be scary.
Eat it, Harold.
Do you want to see a haunted house?
Some kids went missing, so they boarded it up.
Okay, we saw it. Should we go now?
Who ordered the chicken?
What's that?
It's a book of scary stories. Tell me a story. Hey, what's going on?
Tommy's missing.
Tommy's name was in the book. There's no way it's actually connected, right? Okay, what if what happens in the book is exactly what's happened for real? Oh my god. Andy!
Stella!
Listen, you're in the next story. We're reading it right here.
It's a corpse looking for her missing
I'm afraid that we woke something up.
You shouldn't have taken the book.
We've got to stop it.
Sarah Bellows' book, where the stories write themselves and it all comes alive.
The Jangling Man is coming.
That's right. So our feature presentation, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark from 2019, long awaited. I was waiting for this for a while.
Oh yeah.
This one's been hyped up for quite a long time. Norwegian director Andre Øvredal, who I was stoked that he was directing this because he did Troll Hunter, which was a Norwegian film that came out in 2010, and Autopsy of Jane Doe in 2016, which was both are super badass movies. Like I love both of those movies. Troll Hunter is a blast. And Autopsy of Jane Doe is creepy as fuck. Like just a good movie. He's got he's got a style, very kind of a presence, and I really like it. And believe he's also set to direct do you know Stephen King went by a pseudonym?
Yes.
Robert Bachman was his pseudonym.
Robert Bachman.
And I guess in 1979, under the pseudonym Robert Bachman, he wrote a book called The Long Walk. And I guess Andre Øvredal is going to be the director of that movie.
Oh, nice.
I probably won't be out for a couple of years, but and then it was of course produced by Guillermo del Toro, who has an amazing ability to create an ambiance, create a certain type of feel to kind of his creatures and to the movie, so I think all of that was all kind of
not just to the movie, but he has a texture about him.
That's a good way to put it.
His
Texture.
movies have a texture.
Yeah. And so, of course, the movie is based on the books by Alvin Schwartz, who actually wrote a lot of books, a lot of other books besides just these. And a lot of them were kids kind of books about folklore. Some of them were about folk, kind of like folk speech. I don't know how to explain that, but we like tongue twisters and wordplay and stuff you hear about on Away with Words, that PBS show that we like to listen to.
It's not PBS.
Or sorry, NPR show we like to listen to. And what made these books so badass, I mean, the stories were all fun. They were all great, but the illustrations by Stephen Gamal are
that's what you remember forever.
What we remember, right? That's what people remember so much about these books. Because honestly, I was trying to think back before we went and bought the book, because we only had one. I think we had part 3 flying around the house with the boys in the boys' room, but I couldn't find the other 2. So we went and bought the hardback that had all 3 together. And as I was flipping through and actually reading the stories, there was only a couple that I actually really remembered the storyline, but the images I remembered so many of. So many of the images, you know. And that's really, I think, the major iconic part of these stories was those images. And this movie, well, the Stephen Gamal, the guy who did the illustrations, he was a children's book illustrator that was very well regarded. He was a Caldecott Award medal winner for a number of from another book that he had done, but he did a whole bunch of different children's books and stuff. So the guy was a stud, and he's still alive. He lives in St. Paul, Minnesota with his wife.
Didn't this book get banned at schools and stuff?
I know. So when I was in late 80s, early 90s, I had bought all 3 volumes at a school book fair.
Okay.
But not long after that, all of a sudden you started hearing it about, oh man, those books are banned. You know, I think kids probably played it up more too. But
sure.
Like, those books are banned, or like, they're not going to let them sell those at the school, and you're not allowed to bring those to school anymore, and that kind of stuff. But it was actually the most challenged book for public libraries, and probably school libraries, from 1990 to 1999.
Not like Mein Kampf?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
no one's going to challenge like
the most challenged book
Mein
is
Kampf,
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
I'm sure there's other ones out
because of Where's My Thumb?
No, it was probably because of the imagery.
Well, the illustrations.
The imagery was truly terrifying when coupled with the stories and with those memories, and it was scarring. And I don't know that people knew what to do with that.
Well, I totally remember the controversy. I remember this being a big issue, and I remember laughing about it and being like, this is stupid, because they really aren't. And if you look at them now, like they're not that bad.
Harry Potter was a big issue too, though.
Yeah, people
it's going to teach our kids witch
people
magic.
People are freaking dumb. People are dumb. People have a hard time looking past beyond just the words to like, oh, there's a deeper meaning to these, or there's something else here, or maybe I'm teaching my kids something that's valuable, through these stories, or through people are dumb.
What valuable are we teaching them through these stories?
Oh, I don't know about Scary Stories, but I was thinking about Harry Potter.
We're teaching them the value of how we were raised.
Yeah, but I think there's also a value in like we were talking about before, like helping them to confront those fears. Right. There is something to that. There is something to those fairy tales that scare the crap out of us. Like we would think of Hansel and Gretel as a classic.
Right.
How is that any different than, Where's My Toe?
You always bring up Where's My Toe.
Or The Big Toe, or The Dream, or Harold, or any of these stories, right? They're all kind of like little fairy tales.
Dude, the red dot.
Red dot.
Forever.
Right? They may not have a moral of the story at the end, like
moral of the story is
stay away from fucking spiders. That's the moral of the story.
Cover your face with a net when you sleep. So spiders don't crawl up on your face and legs.
Well, let me give you a quick synopsis of this movie that came out. It's 1968 in America. Change is blowing in the wind, but seemingly far removed from the unrest in the cities is the small town of Mill Valley, where for generations, the shadow of the Bellows family has loomed large. It is in their mansion on the edge of town that Sarah, a young girl with horrible secrets, turned her tortured life into a series of scary stories, written in a book that has transcended time stories, that have transcended the way becoming, oh man, I hate it when I read these stupid synopsises that come straight from IMDb because they always have spelling errors.
The editor in you is angry.
Kills me. Written in a book that has transcended. I don't even know what they're trying to say here. That's terrible. I should have read this before I just cut and pasted it, huh? It has become all too real for a group of teenagers who discover Sarah's terrifying tome. Yeah. But that's the one that's on the front page of IMDb.
Wow.
Come on, guys. Step up your fucking game, Anonymous.
Step it up.
/ Anonymous. That's what they're always
Anonymous.
But this actually has 81% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. So it's doing pretty good.
Whoa.
And 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb. Now it's been somewhat criticized. And I know you weren't a huge fan. When we left the theater, I loved it. I was jacked. We took the boys and they were jacked. And part of my joy in watching this movie was seeing not only their reactions during the movie, but afterwards, the whole ride home. It was, what was the scariest part for you? What was the scariest monster? What did you think? How do you think the sequel's going to be? What do you think the craziest?
I bet I'm the only 8-year-old in my class that went and saw scary stories.
I bet I'm the only 8-year-old that went and saw scary stories. Yeah. That kind of stuff. That was my fucking favorite. I love that.
That was my
so
favorite.
Much.
And you asked me what I thought of the movie. And honestly, I feel like I may have missed a bunch of it because I was either watching the person to my direct right.
Yeah, there was a person next to you that like literally covered their face the whole time.
Who was fucking
which was hilarious. An adult.
Hysterical. Yeah. And like just like wiggling the whole time and like, ooh, and just it was great. And then I was either looking at them or I was looking past you at Hudson.
Yeah, Hudson was on the other side of me and he was hilarious.
He just was like
his hands were up by his mouth.
Just
and he was
tucked into himself and just like, and you're like, are you okay, bud? And he's like, yeah. Like, don't move, I'm watching.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah. So I think I missed a bunch of it, but.
Well, and that kind of goes to, it's funny. The person next to you might have been not a horror person, but they were like, oh, I love scary stories when I was a kid. So I want to go see this movie, and that kind of goes back to what a lot of people have been saying about this movie, which is, I think some people went in expecting it to be, a really gory adult horror,
and I think
which
a
I think it
little
would
bit
be
of
fun.
me did.
I think it'd be fun to have. I would like
some of these.
I would like
we
to
do
see
an
that
adult
movie.
Scary stories.
I would love to see that
scary
movie.
Stories to tell to adults.
I think it'd be fun to do a whole movie with Harold, or a whole movie with any one of these like these monsters, right? And do it kind of a more adult fashion, but because the books were kind of gateway horror for people when they were kids, and it kind of got them interested in this kind of thing.
You're right. These are the marijuana of horror.
They are the marijuana of horror. That the movie is kind of like that too. It's a great little gateway horror for kids that are junior high age, high school age to kind of get their feet wet with horror. And I thought they did a really good job with it. I thought that they actually really did a nice job with just kind of giving a good, and it was beyond, it was what I saw somebody wrote, it's what Goosebumps should have been. Which I thought was
agreed.
which I thought was a really good description. But Goosebumps was fun. I enjoyed Goosebumps, but Goosebumps was written for a 4th grader. It wasn't written for a 13-year-old, and this movie was written more for a 13-year-old. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. But I think if you look at the Goosebumps books, they're all kind of written a little bit younger too than the Scary Stories books.
There's some other R.L. Stein books that definitely could have been made in a more adult fashion that maybe at some point they will, but yeah, so I really enjoyed that part of it. I think the movie takes the script itself is doesn't really connect with the books that much. Like it has little pieces here and there. But they definitely, so they kind of create their own storyline.
Well, they have to
through multiple different stories.
None of the stories are really linked. So.
Yeah. And then they create, and then they've created the monsters, and the monsters were, did you see how they did the monsters?
The practical effects.
Most of those were practical effects. Yeah. They did a lot.
That makes me appreciate it.
They did some CGI
so
enhanced stuff for sure. But the actual monsters themselves, they did do full regular practical costuming and stuff. And I've heard people say, oh, it's all CGI, that didn't do their homework. Because it's not all CGI. They actually did a really, really, really badass job with doing some kick-ass practical
I admire
effects.
that and love that.
Yeah, which is like that Pan's Labyrinth thing too, right?
It was that Pan's Labyrinth feel, that
with the creatures,
that texture.
They did a badass job. Badass job.
And I think that has to do that him choosing to do practical effects versus CGI is a Del Toro move.
Oh, for sure.
Know?
Yeah.
Because,
and I don't know how much, I'm sure he was, I don't know how hands-on he was with all of it, but I'm sure he, as a producer, he was there.
But there is
kind of
that texture to his work.
Sure. So we've got our cast of characters. We've got Stella, who's kind of our main character. She's our horror nerd and writer.
Stella!
And I liked her a lot. She reminded me of me. She's a writer, and she had all of these awesome.
And you were born a beautiful young woman.
Horror posters. I was born a beautiful young girl in Mill Valley, Pennsylvania. You didn't know that?
I'm sorry.
And so she's kind of our horror nerd.
To that marital counseling.
She's our son.
I don't even know you.
And then we have her father, who's like a workaholic, probably an alcoholic, still mourning that his wife has left him. We've got Augie, who's
comic relief. Hey yo.
And Chuck. Well, Chuck was our wise ass.
Oh, Chuck was our wise ass.
He was the motor mouth wise ass. Augie was the Pierrot clown.
Okay,
guy.
that makes sense.
And then we have Ruth, who's Chuck's older sister, who's kind of a
spider
bitch.
Face.
And then Tommy Milner, who's her sociopathic date boyfriend, jock guy. And then we have Ramon, our out of towner draft dodger,
mysterious
dude.
Out of towner draft dodger.
And I would say this movie kind of centers around the concept that stories hurt and stories heal. Remember they said that in the beginning? Mm-hmm. I think that was kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? Thesis of the movie.
Yeah, it was the narrative. It was the string that tied everything together. And it was set during a time that was very tumultuous in America. Right. There was a lot of racial tension.
So 1968, Vietnam's in full swing. It's election time. Nixon's running. And it's Halloween. Right. So we start off the movie. Halloween.
So there's a lot of scary things going on.
And we've got Stella and Augie and Chuck. And they are preparing for their Halloween night. And they are apparently going to seek some revenge on some bullies. We're assuming they're bullies. We don't see any kind of lead up to it. We just know that this Tommy guy seems like kind of a jackass. And so they go and he's fishing turds out of the toilet to put into a bag.
Would you say that he's a Cody?
He's definitely a Cody. Tommy is definitely a Cody.
With a C-U-N-T? Definitely.
And so he's got his flaming pile of shit bag ready to go. And he's got
classic.
So they go out, they're out Halloween. They see Tommy's car with all of his jock friends or whatever. And they throw a bag of chonies in his car. Well, they didn't know his sister was in there until after. And then they egg it. They throw a pile of flaming dog shit in the window, which is really dangerous, by the way. When there's tons of kids out trick-or-treating, throw a pile of dog shit into somebody's car. That is a dead child waiting to happen.
Oh, yeah.
They're lucky when they crashed into that fence that they didn't kill a bunch of little kids.
Well, not to mention.
Not cool, man. Don't do that. Don't do that, kids. Don't watch this movie.
The flames.
And the flames. Yeah. And you just lit somebody on fire. Not cool. Don't do that. Tommy probably is justified in being a little pissed at this point.
Just a little bit.
I think so. So he chases them and they end up at a drive-in. By the way, did you see that there was a double feature playing at the drive-in?
I saw, but I didn't
see what. So it was Night of the Living Dead was what they were watching. Right. But it was a double feature. And the second movie was Rosemary's Baby, which I always think came out in 74 or 75, but it didn't. It came out in 1968. It came out the same year as Night of the Living Dead. It was early. So that was the double feature at the drive-in, which would be I always feel like lots of nudity at the drive-in is uncomfortable. And
why? Everybody's getting
everybody's getting busy
anyways.
in there. That's true. That's why there's porn drive-ins.
Everybody's getting their beef jerkies on.
That is true. The beef jerkies.
What?
Their hand jibbers on.
Hand jibbers. It's a beef jerky.
They're B jibbers and H jibbers. So, which, hey, I mean, Ramon probably would have enjoyed that. Had he not been 18 and
everybody
Stella
else underage,
15.
Well, back then it was okay.
Because Stella and Augie and Chuck hop into Ramon's car. They don't know Ramon, but they're being chased by Tommy. So they hop into his car and they meet Ramon. So we meet Ramon, and Ramon's watching Night of the Living Dead. And Stella's hops in the front seat, and immediately her and Ramon have kind of a connection. And then Augie and Chuck are in the back seat. And Tommy finds them and, bangs on the door. And eventually they start heading out. Tommy gets chased off by some other people at the theater. We meet Ramon. And then Stella goes, hey, you guys want to go to a real haunted house? And they end up at the Bellows Mansion.
Dun, dun, dun.
So we find out that there's this kind of mythology or local myth or local urban legend or whatever about the Bellows family. And the Bellows family founded the town. They had the mill, paper mill or whatever it was. And they were the ones that with the rich family in town. And they had a daughter named Sarah.
With a dark secret.
Daughter named Sarah that they, chained up in the basement or whatever.
Because she was an albino.
Well, we didn't know that at the time, but yeah, she, she was only just a little bit different. She was an albino.
So they were mistreating someone just because of the color of their skin.
That's right.
And that happened again with Ramon.
That's like super white racism.
Well, I think
the whitest of racism.
I think it was.
And then we also had a bunch of racist stuff going on with Ramon, right? We had Tommy, using racial slurs, and then we had the cops. This was the late 60s, and we were in small town America, and so that was that they kind of dealt with a lot of that kind of stuff throughout the whole movie, right? And so we get
segregation
that kind of,
and oppression.
Yeah, we get a lot of that stuff throughout the movie. It kind of dealt with it, and I liked that too for being a movie that was geared towards kind of the younger age group. It kind of went a little bit darker than I thought it would in some of those areas too.
Right.
Which I think is good. Gets people like a good introduction to things that, a lot of movies that are geared towards teens and stuff don't dive into.
Well, and also it touches on the true horrors of the world, like 18-year-olds being sent to war.
Right.
And,
right.
Unsure of your political leaders, how do we say, moral fortitude?
Yeah, that's really. Some of our political leaders don't have moral fortitude.
Oh, allegedly.
Really? I always assumed they were the apex of moral fortitude.
No.
So we're in this haunted house. Some weird shit happens. Stella ends up with her book. With Sarah Bellows has this book where she's been writing these stories, and there's all this mythology
that kills everyone.
There's all this this superstition around her book, right, or whatever, these stories that have gone around town. So, Sarah Bellows is not a fan of Stella taking her book.
No,
she was not a fan.
Well, understandably, Sarah is not a fan of people in general because people mistreated her because she was different.
Yeah, but that's not an excuse. It's not an excuse to start killing people.
It's not.
She starts knocking off kids one at a time now. So all of Stella's friends we start getting them knocked off.
Have you learned nothing? Hurt people hurt people.
It's true. Hurt people do hurt people. But we do have a bunch of deaths. So now Sarah's starting to write her own stories.
Which Hudson did not like.
He's not a fan.
He was not a fan of the actual deaths.
So we got our first death is Tommy. We got the famous Harold Scarecrow, which they did a fantastic job. Cool. He looked so cool. Chases him around, kills him. Tommy is our jackass, right? Our jackass jock guy. So he's the first guy that dies, and we're like, it's okay. Tommy's, that's cool. He gets a pitchfork and starts transforming into a scarecrow, which was really badass.
Really cool.
Really badass. Our second death is Augie. So Augie they put him in the Where's My Toe kind of story, right? Which is based on the Big Toe. But interestingly enough, the chick in the illustration that they made into the monster, the Where's My Toe monster, she was from the haunted house, which kind of encapsulates a little bit more of the whole story.
Sure.
If you read the haunted house story in the book, and not really the Big Toe, but they did a lot of mixing and matching.
Well, that was supposed to be a Sarah Bellows relative, right?
I don't know, may have been, possibly. But I always had a problem with the Big Toe story in the book, because if you read it, it's like this kid's out in his garden, right? And he finds a big toe. And he goes to his parents. He's like, hey, I found this big toe. And mom's response is, it looks nice and plump. I'll put it in the soup and we'll have it for supper. What the fuck, Mom?
Well, there has to be something wrong with Mom. Why would there be a big toe because probably Mom killed someone and buried him in the garden.
You think so?
Yes.
Maybe. I don't know. But then Dad carves it up into 3 pieces for the family to have for dinner.
Yeah.
So parents are murderers, and they're like, sweet, we're going to have some body parts for dinner. Still, that's some big.
But also, what I noticed about the movie, and I think what we find out at the end, is that the stories that Sarah wrote, the stories that are coming alive, were stories that she wrote with members of her family in them. So who we see,
because they were the ones who died,
is members of her family. So the big toe is.
Where did you get that from?
They say it at the end. And when the ghosts are all standing in the house, you see them all, and you see them.
Yeah, but that's in the house, but not the creatures that come after them.
Yes, you see them in one flash. You see them as the creatures, and then it goes back to the kids, and then it goes back to Sarah
I totally missed that. I haven't seen that anywhere. That's interesting. I'll have to look.
I could fucking be hallucinating it though too. Like I could be putting that into my mind.
It makes sense.
But I think that's why. It came
but those creatures though wouldn't be part of that because those were based. The creatures were based on the fears of those individuals. So like Augie's was based on. I mean, Chuck's was based on the dream he was having.
Right.
And
but that wasn't the fear of the individual. It was a dream that he kept having.
Yeah, but
after they went into the house.
But look at the Jangly Man in the end, right? You have the Jangly Man with Tommy or with Ramon. That was based on his brother coming back in body parts. As a he said they sent him back in a box, just in part as parts from Vietnam.
I didn't catch that.
So, that's why the body kept falling apart and coming back together. So but I don't know. I'll look into that. That's interesting. I didn't notice that. So certainly possible. But yeah, so Augie's death was pretty scary. That was the first real big jump scare. I thought. I mean, there was one in the Harold one, but I thought the really big jump one was when Augie was under the bed and
we think he's got away.
The face pops out. Yeah, it builds tension really well. Face pops out. He gets pulled.
Hudson did not like his death.
In the floor. It was bad. Yeah, it was bad. The nails in the floor. That always gets me. Every time I see nails in the floor, always kill me. And then we have our third attack, which was Ruth. And Ruth was Chuck's sister. She was seen running into the
worst one.
Oh, it's bad. She was seen running into a spider web in the Bellows house when they were down.
And in the story, it crawls over someone's face, right? Isn't that the story?
She just gets. Yeah, I think so. I think in the story it might, in the actual story in the book. But when Ruth's case, she ran into a spider web in the Bellows house, and then we started seeing this little like pimple pop up on her face, and it just gets bigger and bigger.
It's not a pimple. There's things moving inside.
So she finally she's got this big old thing, but she's got a school play that she's supposed to be in, and so she's at the high school and she runs into the bathroom, try to pop this thing, and it's just massive, right? This thing is just pulsating,
which was literally the grossest part.
Did not like this scene.
Did not.
When she popped it, obviously we know the spiders just
whole lot of note
went everywhere with baby spiders.
You felt like you had spiders on you.
I did, even after
you were like, I feel like I have spiders on me.
Yeah, did not like this scene. Ruth should have been burned. We should just burned her.
Burn the school down.
Burn her. Burn the school down.
Sorry for your loss.
Goodbye. See you later. Fuck you.
Had spider nest in her face.
I don't like it. Not a fan. But she didn't die. She was alive. So she
got water
attacked.
splashed on her.
And so while all this is going on,
it attacked her looks.
These books are going. Or the Sarah Bellows book keeps writing in the stories, right? So the stories are filling in as these things are happening. So we know that everybody who was in that house is fair game, right?
It's like Final Destination.
It is like Final Destination. And Chuck is next. So we got our wisecracking.
No, Chuck. Chuck was so funny.
They're all going together. They go to a mental health hospital because they're like, we got to figure out what's going on here.
Because that's where you go when you got to figure out what's going on.
Always got to go to the mental health hospital because we know she ended up there eventually.
And number one, they like snuck in. And I was like, that facility should be fined for PHI and HIPAA breaches. Like they should not be able to run around like it's several doctors like that. You can't do that. They don't even have a visitor pass. They have not signed any waivers.
Yeah.
Where's the waivers?
Not cool.
Waivers.
So they sneak in. They need to go find. They need to go find the truth, right? What happened to Sarah Bellows? So they need to go to the Red Room. There was like the research and something.
It's the file room.
It was the file room.
Which again,
the
not
old
locked.
file room.
And in case any of you are mental health professionals or work in the field, you would know that any sort of medical or mental health information has to be locked up behind 2 sets of locks. And there was only one behind that door in the red room. There should have been 2. Another fine. Shame.
You need to shut this place down.
Shut it down.
But also because they've got records of torturing children.
That was next. That was going to be my next screen rant.
So Ramon and Stella get separated from Chuck. Chuck's now,
of course,
freaking out because he knows he's next. He starts going out.
He's in a creepy
halls.
Mental health hospital hallways.
But meanwhile, Stella and Ramon are digging into the files, and of course, they find the file instantly. And which in this like millions and billions of files, and they find the cylinder. This wax is
everything that they need.
Wax cylinder. Speaking of wax cylinders, by the way, I was like, I think isn't that what it was? A wax cylinder, the like little circular thing that they played the
something
sounds
like
on.
That, yeah.
I think that's what they're called. But anyways, I looked up wax cylinders and I found they just recently uncovered wax cylinders of a doll that Thomas Edison created that had a wax cylinder inside of it of some kind that you could, so it was like the first talking doll, and they have audio recordings of it. And it is the creepiest fucking shit you've ever heard. That's horrible. And apparently he only made them for like 3 weeks because people were so creeped out by them.
Uncanny Valley.
They did not like them. Yeah. Kids were not a fan. So I thought that was interesting.
Mommy, I don't like it.
So then we've got Chuck, we've got them finding out this wax cylinder, which they put it somehow Ramon knows how to play these, and he puts it on a little player, and we hear Sarah being interviewed or talked to by her brother, who is a doctor. And he's trying to that
is a violation of
of
our clause of doing right by a client. We're not supposed to see family members or people that we could have dual relationships with. Again, plot holes. Now you see why I didn't like the movie.
So yeah, that's not HIPAA approved.
No, that's not quality care.
Nope, not at all. So the Bellows family is trying to implicate Sarah in some deaths of some children that have happened in town because of their mercury poisoning of the water. This is where the plot breaks down a little bit.
What? This is where
the plot, the storyline, not the strongest. They could have done a better job linking some of this storyline together. And I'm kind of hoping that they come out with like a 4-hour version in the extras.
Like it should have been a series on Netflix.
Because there was a lot of things that they could have streamed together a lot better. And it seemed like they had to edit out a bunch of shit that could have made the story a little bit richer, so it was a little bit lacking in that department. But anyways, we hear Sarah Bellows getting electroshock, or electroshock therapy. And by the 3rd time or so she gets shocked, her voice changes. And all of a sudden she's like a different person and she's creepier. And she's like, yes, I did kill those children. Is that what you want to hear? That kind of thing.
Inconsistent.
And then we have Chuck, and Chuck's running through the halls, right? While this is going on, Chuck's trying to get the hell out of this mental health hospital because he's like, some shit's about to go down and I don't like it because I'm the next one on the list.
There's that vagus nerve response.
Not good. And so he comes down a hallway, everything turns red. And
because that's good.
We see Pillsbury Dough Girl at the end of the hall.
She
right? From the dream.
Smiles.
Perfect illustration of the dream. Or characterization of the illustration from the dream in the book. Great job. And she starts waddling down the corridor, heading towards him. And he goes down another hallway, and she's at the end of that hallway. Goes down another hallway. She's at the end of that hallway. This was one of the more fun, like suspense building. But I'm kind of with Hank on this one that I kind of laughed at it. It was fun because she's such a funny looking character.
Well, she's got a big smile on her face.
Yeah, it's super, super, super. Hudson thought it was the scariest part. I thought it was actually the kind of the more funnier, lighthearted part.
Well, because then he gets like absorbed.
Well, yeah, he goes right into her Jello belly. Like she's got like a Jello pudding pop belly.
You know what she reminded me of?
What?
The nurse balloon from Big Hero 6.
There was a gelatinous character in Monsters Inc.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
That like things could just go into, like get sucked into.
Yeah.
That was what it reminded me of. So caught him, enveloped him. Chuck's dead.
Well,
Chuck's R.I.P. Maybe
he's inside.
We know he's inside of her belly.
Mm-hmm.
Inside
He's
of
so fluffy.
Inside of Pillsbury Ghost Belly. And then we get to our climax now, and Ramon is Ramon and Stella end up getting arrested. What did they get arrested for? I can't remember. Why did he pick them up on suspicion? Because of the missing persons or something? Maybe because they were
plot hole. All I heard was plot hole, plot hole, plot
I don't
hole.
remember. Anyway, they end up getting arrested, and while they're in jail for the night with the sheriff, we are introduced to a new creature that's not an illustration, but kind of based on a few different stories from the book, called the Jangly Man. And the Jangly Man is Ramon's fear. It's his deep-seated dark fear. And it's definitely based on the fact that they sent his brother home in pieces, is what he said. So now we've got this body. It's based on Mitai Dodi Walker, which one of the ones it's based on, which is basically the story of a head that comes down a chimney and rolls down in the floor, and the dog talks back and forth with the thing, and then the head comes down, and it's saying Mitai Dodi Walker and all this stuff. So that's where it comes from in the book, but it actually comes probably from a couple of different ones. Aaron Kelly's Bones is one of the stories, and What Did You Come For? So probably a combination of those three. If you read those three stories, that's kind of where I think that's where they got this Jangly Man idea from. But this is Ramon's monster. And so monster's chasing him, tries to get through the bars. Somehow him and Stella get out. This is after he breaks the neck of the sheriff.
Yeah.
The Jangly
sheriff
Man,
didn't last
Jangly
long.
Man broke the neck of the sheriff, which I thought was pretty intense
pretty brutal
for that movie. It was pretty brutal. There was a couple of scenes that were it actually it went darker than I thought it was going to go in a couple of different, at a couple of different times. Which is pretty hardcore, I think for a movie that was,
it was pretty fucking metal.
Yeah, it was gnarly. Somehow they get out, and this Jangly Man creature, which is all separated, it basically is like pieces, and then it comes together and makes this monster. But the pieces can break off and then come back together, and you get an arm that falls off, it can come back on. So Ramon pins the Jangly Man between his car and a bus or something, or another car, and manages to escape. And so we see at the end, right, that they've somehow, Stella has convinced Sarah Bellows that she needs to not kill people anymore.
Real quickly convinced her too.
Bad idea. Don't kill people anymore.
Like
Be cool.
She should become.
Stop being such a vengeful bitch. We know bad shit happened to you. I'm going to help you get through this. So cut it out. Are we cool? We're cool. And then a loud scream.
Very loud. The kids all like grab their
my
ears.
It's terrible. Scream. It was really loud. It was a really loud scream. And then that's the end, right? And Stella sees Ramon off on a bus, because we found out he was a draft dodger. We didn't bring that up. He was a draft dodger. Gets on the bus. They send him on his way.
Confronts his fear.
He confronts his fear. Although there's a lot to, there's kind of that subtext of real life fear, mixed with this, this is all set during a time of a lot of turmoil. And, I'm sure he did that on purpose, because of our current times. And we see his genuine fears, right? The fear of, I'm going to end up like my brother who was killed in Vietnam, and this whole war that is being sent, we're being sent to by our military or by our government. So, and then as a sequel teaser at the end, right, we've got where they're driving away. Dad's driving the car. Stella's in the front seat, and Ruth, Chuck's sister's in the back seat, with her face all bandaged up. And then says something about how she's gonna, they're gonna figure out how to bring Augie and Chuck back, but not Tommy. Fuck him.
Sequel teaser.
Fuck him, right?
Fuck that guy.
Fuck Tommy.
Fuck you. Fuck you. You're cool.
You're cool.
Fuck you.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up. They're like, let's bring Augie and Chuck back, but fuck Tommy.
Yeah, that guy was a jerk. Don't be a jerk in horror movies then.
But this, I really thought they did a great job of getting the ambiance of what this book, kind of the feel of how this book felt when you're
the
reading
texture of it.
When you're reading it as a kid, it felt like the book read to me. And I know a lot of people didn't love it. But I think kind of looking at it as what it was, which is, and I'm a sucker for jump scares too. I fucking love jump scares.
There was a lot
I really
of them.
do. I love jump scares. I don't care what anybody says. I don't, people have been calling them cheap jump scares. I don't call them cheap jump scares. I fucking love a good jump scare. I think they're awesome. Like, and watching The Boys with jump scares is a blast.
It's so fun. Just watching other people in general, like watching people in the theater was so much fun.
I am a fan. So I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. I know that was kind of a long synopsis. And spoiler alert.
A little late.
Is it too late for that?
A little late.
Well, if you've been listening to the podcast for any length of time, you should know. It's all a big spoiler alert.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was, and I think that's such a great fear of fear movie because it really was the first like introduction to scary shit.
Well, and it was a lot of like running
kids.
away from your own fears and, things that were unaddressed and just all these other things. Yeah.
It brought up a lot of references back to the book too.
Yeah.
Like the black dog that kept showing up. There's a story called The Black Dog. Sam's pet was one of her stories. Remember she said, or he, I don't remember what it was. I think they were reading through her stories. But Stella's stories, the ones that she'd written. So there's a bunch of those real, and then in the Sarah Bellows book, there's a lot of when they're looking back through the book, all the stories are obviously the ones from the actual book.
Of course.
Which is cool. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun movie. I highly recommend it. I give it 4 out of 5 stars on my, what's that? Letterbox account.
I give it 2.5 screams.
Yeah. You weren't as big of a fan.
Well, mostly because of the psychological inconsistencies. Very inaccurate.
You're a psychological inconsistency.
Your face is a psychological inconsistency.
Butt's a psychological inconsistency.
Your mom's a psychological inconsistency.
All right. So we actually got through an episode so close to the other episode. We've got coming up, we are going to do Fear of Clowns very soon. So be prepared for that one.
We watched Gacy.
Because we did watch Gacy recently. But we're probably going to do that the week that It 2 comes out. So It comes out on September 6th. So I think that episode will drop on September 9th. But next week, if we stay on this 1 week track, which we hope to do, we will get another episode in. And I want to do Fear of Caves next. Fear of Caves or Tunnels. So we can do The Descent. Because it is a great movie. You've never seen it, and it's creepy as fuck.
Yeah, I don't think I want
to. And I think it'd be a good time to do Fear of Caves or Tunnels, with The Descent being our feature presentation. So
I'm afraid of feeling.
Look forward to that. Such a badass movie. And we may need one more between now and Fear of Clowns. So
we'll figure it out.
We'll have to figure out another one. Throw out your suggestions, people.
You figure it out.
Figured it out. But yeah, so. Our Scary Stories episode, Fear of Fear.
Fear.
You had to get it in, didn't you? Has come to a close. And so hopefully we'll have another good week.
Here's to a good week for everyone.
We need a good week, and you all need a good week. Thanks for listening, Feardos, and until next time.
Stay afraid. Stay very afraid.
Well, I got a trombone with a rusty bell. Gotta find a woman who plays it well. But when she's blowing, how I yell, blow that rusty trombone. She grabs my horns, my delight, knows just how to blow it right. A virtuoso day or night when she blows that rusty rusty trombone. When I pull out my instrument and fiddle by her side, such a sweet accompaniment, she grabs me by my pride. She's a big bottom blower, I'm a fast-paced hugger. When we duet, she's just a low-down sucker. From out through the piece, her lips to her bucket, she blows that rusty trombone. Blow, baby, blow, baby, blow, baby, blow, baby, blow, baby, blow, baby. Blow, baby, blow, baby, blow, baby, blow. Well, such a thrilling operature, astounding, I must say. She fills my heart with rapture when she blows my ass away. Well, I know that the fun hasn't just begun. She digs on her teeth with the tip of her tongue, kicking off rust with spit on her thumb when she blows that rusty trombone. Oh, baby, blow, baby, blow, baby, blow, baby, blow, baby. Oh, baby, blow, baby, blow.